Good evening and welcome to the February 4, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission regular video meeting. I'm Rory Westberg, Park and Recreation Commission Chair. In accordance with Proclamation 20-28.10 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order, tonight's Park and Recreation Commission meeting is using video conferencing technology provided by Zoom. The Zoom video of this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast live via Zoom and will be uploaded to the city's YouTube channel later this evening. City staff, Jesse Bond, Jason Kintner, Ryan Daly, Paul West, Tammy Bodmer, Merrill Thomas-Schatt, Katie Herzog, Council Member Liaison Jake Jacobson, and consultants Emily Moon and Steve Dew are participating in tonight's meeting remotely. Other public audience members are listening to the meeting by telephone or via the internet. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones and will city staff please call the roll?
Chair Westberg.
Here.
Vice Chair McCarthy.
Here.
Commissioner Richter.
Here.
Commissioner Cohen.
Here.
Commissioner Gualtieri.
Here.
Commissioner Birkenwald.
Here.
Commissioner Struck.
Here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you all very much. Commissioners, before we start the business of tonight's meeting, I'm going to go over the rules again to help that we've been following for the past several meetings to help things run smoothly. So if a commissioner has a question, please use the raised hand feature. That's part of Zoom. I'll do my best to recognize commissioners in the order in which your hands are raised. Everyone will be asked to limit him or herself to one question and one clarifying question if necessary, so that each commissioner has a chance to ask a question before a commissioner is given another chance to ask a question. Additionally, prior to speaking, please state your name for those listening in on the meeting. Tonight's agenda will not include in-person public appearances in accordance with Proclamation 20-28.11 and the Governor's Extended Safe Start Order. However, individuals wishing to speak during the appearances portion of our meeting may do so by telephone or using the Zoom teleconferencing application. Provided, however, they registered their desire to speak with the city administrative staff by 4 p.m. today. Our city administrative staff will call you by name or telephone number when it is your turn to speak. This is the opportunity for anyone to speak to the Parks and Recreation Commission. All remarks will be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to individual commission members or staff members. If any person makes personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, or becomes boisterous, threatening, or personally abusive while addressing the commission, I may request that the person leave the meeting. When it is your turn to address the commission, be sure to speak audibly and state your name for the record. Your comments will be limited to 3 minutes. And I will provide you with a 30-second and 15-second warning when your time is about to expire. City staff, is there anyone who has signed up for appearances that wishes to address the commission?
We have 8 folks signed up for appearances this evening. Rachel Holloway is up first. Rachel, I will let you in just a moment. Rachel, are you in with us?
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you. We don't have video, but we can hear you.
Ah, video. Okay. All right. Dear members of the committee, I would like to speak on behalf of the children who bike at Snake Hill to let you know how vital this park is for the youth community on Mercer Island. It has been such a difficult year with school closure and all the other anxieties. Snake Hill has been the one place where they can meet safely outside and have fun. It may be hard for adults and non-bikers to understand why these dirt jumps are so necessary to these kids. It is a combination of having a cardiovascular sport combined with mind-clearing concentration and adrenaline necessary to do the jumps. The result is a total release from stress and anxiety. There is a great community within this group of riders, partly because they work together and then they cheer each other on. They vary in age, yet there is enormous respect and encouragement that goes on within these age groups, and that is down to the skill of riding. Riding bikes in nature gives a feeling of well-being and connection to the great outdoors. It is worth noting that 24% of our children on Mercer Island get diagnosed with anxiety or ADHD. This sport is an antidote to this. There is little alternative for this age group on the island. The only other space designated for kids is the skate park, and that was built in the 1970s. There are concerns raised about the alterations to the jumps that the children have been making. The worry being that these could cause injury and endanger riders. The kids were in the process of amending the jumps after meeting with Kim Frappier, who gave them guidelines to not build greater than 4 feet and make the jumps tabletops. With these guidelines, there is minimal risk at Snake Hill. There is far greater risk riding on the roads. However, when the jumps become so small, they do not serve all the riders' needs. In the past, this is when unsanctioned trail building occurs. There is a large group of children who ride here, and this space is so small. They also have varying abilities and age.
You have 30 seconds.
Rather than censor this space, it should be expanded with expertise and given legitimacy. I would suggest that Evergreen Mountain Alliance be brought in to help with this. Evergreen can teach kids to build trails safely. They could work with the city and the kids. Our children would learn land stewardship, simple engineering, and gain a greater responsibility for this place. The trails could also be graded for ability, and this would help with safety issues.
Rachel, I'm afraid your time is up.
Okay, I was about to be done.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Next we have Matthew Lamb. Just one moment. Matthew, are you with us? Remember your mic and your camera.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for giving me the time to speak this evening. There are 3 problems. The first is that the BMX park is too small. The needs of the community are greater than the size of the park. Mountain biking is way more popular than BMX ever was. This is because it is a much more inclusive sport and it's a little bit easier than BMX. As an indication of how popular the place is, the kids who jump there have 30 other people on the Discord group that they use to organize activity. And when you go there in summer, there are often little kids with their parents there, enjoying the jumps as a roller coaster. And frequently there are 5 people lining up to go down the jump line. Second problem is the rules that govern a BMX park are anachronistic. Modern mountain bikes are way safer. They have bigger wheels, they're more stable. And then the third thing is that I think the kids are sometimes incorrectly perceived as a nuisance. They're a credit to the school system here. My son, who jumps at the park, has been there from elementary school onwards, and they practice inclusivity. They let the little kids play. They're very respectful of other people. Some of them use this for credit for their phys ed. And essentially they're athletes. There is nothing of the BMX counterculture that came before. Now, solutions. The first one is to deal with the nuisance factors. That's pretty straightforward. I'd put a trash can down there to deal with litter. I'd put a lockbox down there to prevent theft of tools. That has been a problem. And in fact, I had to go pick up some tools at the police station recently. Actually, the officer on duty remarked that that the park was an excellent facility. I gave the kids something to do during coronavirus. I put up clear and permanent signage demarcating the space. Have the kids meet with an arborist to understand the care of trees, and put a bunch of dirt there to prevent people digging borrow pits to build the jumps. Over time, the dirt sort of wears away, and they have to. If you're going to build a jump, you need to get the dirt from someplace. I'd reformulate the rules to reflect the change in usage. Build jumps in accordance with modern standards. And I think Rachel, who came before me, mentioned that maybe get Evergreen in to say what those standards should be, and encourage the kids to attend trail days building in the region. Adults, the parents can do that. I think many of the parents like me are very appreciative of this space. And then
30 seconds left.
Lastly, I would expand the BMX track to fit the needs or add more facilities elsewhere. There's a ton of unused space in that woodland in Luther Burbank. And I know other places have been proposed over the years. And in fact, there is potential for a trail system on Mercer Island. I mean, you could really elevate Mercer Island to, to be similar for mountain biking as it is to road bikers who go around the island on any given day on the weekend. Anyway, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to me. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Andy Powell. One moment. Okay, Andy, you should be in for us.
Yeah. All right. My good, everyone can hear me, hopefully. All right. Well, thanks for having me. Rachel, I think did a wonderful job kind of basically saying everything that I wanted to say. But my wife and I, we moved to Mercer Island a couple years ago. We coach at University of Washington, where the track coach is there. And we spend a lot of our time working with young adults, and the importance of, I think, these kids on Mercer Island getting outside during this pandemic is it's just been unbelievable for our family that moved here. We have a 13-year-old and a 10-year-old, and I think at first during this pandemic, everyone was kind of just on screens, and there wasn't a whole lot of things to do outside of that. And then they discovered this Snake Hill, and I've never seen anything quite like it. Just a bunch of young children outside, getting off their screens and getting this healthy exercise, and the friendships that they've made, and just the unstructured recreation activities, playtime that they can have outside has been really good. And I'm really hoping that we don't take that away from them. I went and got a mountain bike myself, and have spent a lot of time there, and it's unbelievable. These kids, just them out there just having fun, and it's safe, and they're following all the rules. They have their masks on, they keep it clean. There's no, it's just a really safe, fun place. And really, for the most part, actually pretty much everyone that we've come across, when they come through there, they're just so happy to see the kids out and about. I think there may be one or two people that are kind of the outliers here. And I think it's just unfortunate that how that maybe they've addressed these kids and made my 10-year-old cry. But really, these kids, they take ownership of this, ownership of the community, and I just think they've really done a great job of just keeping it nice and making it their own. And I will say, when you first go out there, it almost doesn't. It looks a little crazy because there's mountain bikes and they're going off these jumps, but these kids are super responsible.
And you have 30 seconds.
Perfect. I'm almost done. But they're super responsible, and it's safe. I've even gone off the jumps. I haven't gotten any air yet, but I will say it's just, I think it's one of the best places on Mercer Island. And I just, whoever started it, I think it's just been an unbelievable thing for these kids. And, I appreciate all of you for giving me the opportunity to talk.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Christy Shires. One moment, Christy. Okay, I think you're with us.
Hi there. I'm Christy Shires and I live on the south end of Mercer Island. I have two sons, 12-year-old, I'm sorry, he's 13 now. He would hate that I just said that, a 13-year-old and 10-year-old Zane. Quentin is kind of unique. Sometimes you might see him with his long red hair sticking out of a bike helmet. Here, sit with me. And really during COVID, he was able to find Snake Hill as a refuge for him, a place where he could get outside and work with friends, build community with others. And we're just so happy that he had that outlet and something to do with his time that was productive and safe and socially distanced and not on a screen. And we definitely want to be stewards of the space and make sure that we're following the rules and engaging in healthy discussion about the rules and what is best for the space, and providing further opportunities for the kids to work together and be together at Snake Hill. Do you have anything you want to say? No? How much time do we have? 2 minutes? Okay. One of the things that I'm so impressed with is when they work together at the course, they have a chance to be creative in their building and also work together and really build that course at the same time that they're building relationships and learning skills. And then when they get to ride the course, they have a chance to be athletic and build cardiovascular strength and be healthy. And I think that that's a really important option and a great use of park space in an area that maybe wouldn't be usable for other things because it's so hilly and where it's located. So we're really grateful for the space and the opportunities that exist there. And it's something we do want to take care of. I know that most of the middle schoolers and high schoolers that spend a lot of time there, they really take the rules to heart. They remind each other to pick up trash. They keep each other in check on building and following the boundary rules. And I think that they all recognize that they're lucky to have it and it's something that we all want to maintain responsibly. And
30 seconds left.
And then we are looking forward to future discussions with the commission and other citizens happening at the space. This Saturday, we'll be attending that. And we're looking forward to having everyone's thoughts considered and heard, and just making sure that everyone knows the expectations and that they're following them. So thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight and for the great resource of our parks.
Thank you.
Next, we have Leslie Watson. One moment, Leslie. Okay, ready when you are, Ms. Watson.
Hi there, good evening. My name is Leslie Watson, and thank you for allowing me to speak today on behalf of my son and all of the children who bike at Snake Hill. A few short years ago, I had no clue what Snake Hill was or where it was. And when I eventually did, I will admit I was a little bit apprehensive. But what I've come to see is that this place is a refuge. It's a sanctuary, if you will, for a whole subset of our community. Pre-COVID-19, it was a special place for my son to get outside, to appreciate nature and feel like he was a part of something. Now that we are almost into a year of the pandemic, Snake Hill has become a lifesaver. My son was diagnosed with anxiety recently, and part of his treatment is to get outside in nature and get his heart pumping, and Snake Hill does this for him. He spends hours there with his friends, which today is more important than ever for our young people to have that social connection. The love for nature it is instilling in them is huge. These kids, teens, young adults are the stewards of our future. My son has participated in the building of jumps, and I can assure you he has not knowingly caused any damage. But instead of criticizing our children for actually using our parks, why don't we partner with them and instead teach them, make them a part of the process so that they in turn can teach others? I know there have been comments about litter, but I know my son goes and collects it and he puts it in the wheelbarrow that's there. And when he's finished riding, he either rides it up to a garbage or he takes it home and puts it in our cans. What I would like to ask for you guys today is that we support and expand Snake Hill in becoming a safe place for our kids to ride and jump. Is it possible to bringing in an outside group to help the Parks Department develop this area, teach our kids how to safely build, to respect nature, and understand that inadvertent damage can be caused? I understand these things cost money. My husband and I are willing to make a monetary donation to support this effort. We'll help fundraise or help with the manual labor, whatever it takes. Would you consider implementing a working group that includes a cross-section of our community and our youth who see the value of this area being expanded for them, to work through challenges, to help others, and to educate others? These kids are our future. Let's support their mental health instead of trying to chase them out of the parks. Let's empower them and help them to respect the beauty and sustainability of our lands. The value that Snake Hill gives to all of our kids, especially right now,
You have 30 seconds.
no price tag. Thank you for your time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Beck Harrison. Just a moment, Mr. Harrison. Okay.
Hello, I'm Beck Harrison. I'm an 8th grader at Mercer High School, and 10th grader. Yes, 10th grader. That was last year. I'm here to talk about Snake Hill, like the last 5 people. It's a really good place where the people who build and dig there, they all work together, but they're not organized. Well, they are organized, but it's a decentralized activity and community of people who, of kids who work together, do physical activities together, and can hang out together, talk together, and interact together, especially during the whole COVID thing. It allows us to do that, and it allows us to do that by ourselves as a group in order to do something productive and outdoors and stuff. There are some concerns that people have, like trash. There are some litter and stuff, but that happens in any public place. Most of it is picked up and put in the wheelbarrow, and that wheelbarrow is serviced by the kids who go there. A trash can could be implemented. Mr. Holloway said that there was a trash can there. I don't know what happened to that, but another one could be implemented, and I'm sure people would service it. I know people would service it, like I would. There have been concerns about it, people building anywhere they want. It's a coordinated thing by there's leaders in the thing. They're not designated, but they are leaders in their own right, because they know what they're doing, and they're the people who have experience building and biking and know what's best for the thing. They do it professionally for Evergreen, or not professionally, but they volunteer at Evergreen Evergreen parks and stuff.
Beck, you've got 30 seconds left.
Okay. That's about it. Thank you for having me on, and have a good night.
Thank you for your comments.
Next, we have Jessica Crump. Oh, Crump. Maybe I had the wrong name. Sorry about that, Jessica. I believe you're with us now. Ready when you are with your microphone and camera.
There we go. Hi, my name is Jessica Crump. I'm not sure why my camera's not on, but I will be quick and just say that my favorite thing about Snake Hill, my kids, I would call them casual users of Snake Hill, but in the summertime, it was a real refuge for them. And I heard that they were going, and I was curious, and I went to visit. And what I saw that really impressed me is that for my kids, it was a real community of older kids who were there teaching them and, you know, kind of showing them the ropes and definitely reminding them to follow the rules and, you know, make sure that it was kind of a follow the rules or we're going to lose this space. So I just wanted to say that I'm really glad we have it as a space for our kids. And I hope that we can establish rules and post them and talk about them and just help build this community for our kids. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Final comments tonight will be from John Hamer. One moment, John. Ready when you are, Sarah.
Unmute. Well, hit unmute. Hello? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, thanks.
Can you see me?
No video.
Well, I thought I had my video. Okay, start video. There we go. Sorry.
Very good.
Okay, my name is John Hamer. I've lived on Mercer Island for a little over 20 years now. My profession, I'm a former journalist. I was a columnist and editorial writer for Seattle Times for many years. I'm also now a member of Mercer Island Rotary, which is a very active organization, as you all know. And I'm here to talk about kind of the opposite issue of all of our previous speakers, the bikers. Why am I here to talk? Because I have a grandson with an extremely rare disease that means he must use a wheelchair. It's something only about 250 kids in the world have been diagnosed with this particular genetic disorder called CTNNB1 syndrome. His parents, my stepson and daughter-in-law, live near Mercerdale Park. They take him in his wheelchair with his little 2-year-old sister, who's fully mobile, on walks around Mercerdale Park on a regular basis, and so do we, his grandparents, my wife and I. However, he cannot use the playground at Mercerdale Park because it is inaccessible to wheelchairs. We know that there is a plan to renovate Mercerdale that is underway, and we are trying to participate very, very actively in that process. We know that there's a meeting February 8th to talk about the Mercerdale renovation plan, and some of us will testify. We have put together a very interesting and growing coalition of people concerned about accessibility in all of our parks on Mercer Island, not just Mercerdale. But we believe that all parks should be fully accessible to people of all abilities, particularly disabled kids and playgrounds. There are parks around the region, Bellevue, Lake Sammamish, Renton, and other parts around the state, Spokane, Poulsbo, that have taken major steps to make their parks fully accessible to wheelchairs.
And you have 30 seconds left.
And to others with disabilities. We know the PROS process that you're engaged in is looking at all of our parks. We would like accessibility to be a high priority. Let's reimagine our parks all over Mercer Island to make them fully accessible to all of our citizens, whatever issues they may have with mobility. Accessibility means equity, inclusion, fairness, and compassion for all of us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chair Westberg, that's all we've got for appearances signed up this evening. You can unmute for us. Thanks. Unmute for us.
Oh,
Thank you.
since there are no further appearances, we'll move on to the first item of business, which is to review and consider approving the minutes from the January 7th, 2021 and January 21st, 2021 meetings. After submitting the agenda packet for tonight's meeting, staff further reviewed the minutes from the previous two meetings and made minor changes for clarity purposes. Those revised minutes were included in your updated packet. So commissioners may have a motion to approve the revised minutes as presented of the January 7th and January 21st, 2021 meetings. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion to approve both January 7 and January 21. This is Don Cohen.
Thank you, Don. Do I have a second?
Jody McCarthy, I'll second.
Thank you, Jody. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones, and will city staff please conduct a roll call vote?
Indeed. Chair Westberg,
Aye.
Vice Chair McCarthy,
Aye.
Commissioner Richter,
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen,
Aye.
Commissioner Gualtieri,
Aye.
Commissioner Birkenwald,
Aye.
and Commissioner Struck.
The motion passes and the minutes are approved. The second item of business concerns the Code of Ethics, and we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond to present this discussion.
Good evening, commissioners, and I'm actually joining you tonight for two items. So thank you for having me. It's good to see everybody again, and I will also say thank you for joining us at the council meeting on January 19th. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right. Well, okay. No, that's not right. Okay, can you see that slide? Yeah, okay. So I'm here tonight really just to provide an overview of the Code of Ethics. And this first slide here says abbreviated training, which is a teaser that there's going to be a more comprehensive training on Code of Ethics coming your way soon. Just a little background. I've got a little screen problem here. In 2018, the city adopted our first Code of Ethics. It was amended in December 2019, and it covers things like ensuring officials, and you fall into this category as a commission member, comply with the laws and policies affecting the operations of our government at all levels, federal, state, and our own municipal code, that you be independent, impartial, and fair in conducting your business, that your position as a board member be used for public benefit and not for personal gain, and public deliberations and processes be conducted openly, unless for some reason we're holding a confidential session with you all, which would be called an executive session, and that we may maintain respect and civility in our proceedings. Oh gosh, you guys, this is, sorry, my screen has done something funny here. So we amended the code in December of 2019. And at that point, what we basically did is we added in some additional procedures that weren't included when the Code of Ethics was first adopted. And so what I will encourage you to do, because the code is actually several pages long, is to go visit our municipal code section 2.60. And I will send this slide deck to Meryl and make sure that she gets it to you and read the Code of Ethics in its entirety. So I'm going to leave you with that homework assignment. More recently, the City Council has given us as staff a number of directives. The first thing is to update the Code of Ethics. So we're going to pursue another amendment, and I won't get into the details tonight. Ultimately, it will be under and at the direction of the City Council. But we discovered a couple of things recently that need to be amended. One of the big ones, namely, is that the Code of Ethics statement that you all signed, remember that sheet was a list, that document doesn't tie back to our code. And you're probably thinking, how did that happen? Well, it did through the Second Amendment. There was a disconnect. So we've got to go and fix that. I predict there's maybe a handful of other things the City Council wants to look at as well. I am actually in the process of retaining an outside attorney to help us with those revisions, and anticipate that we'll be in front of the council as early as the first meeting in March discussing potential revisions. So that's the first thing they told us to do. The other thing they asked us to do, or directed us to do, to be clear, was to email all of you, and you should have received an email last week, letting you know about the option to seek an informal opinion from the city attorney on the applicability of the Code of Ethics. And basically what the code says is you can ask the city attorney, you send him an email regarding an informal opinion on hypothetical circumstances or situations solely related to the official making the request. So Rory, I'll pick on you. Rory, if you have a situation that you're concerned may have the potential of violating the Code of Ethics, you would send an email to our city attorney, B.O. Park, and I just realized his email is not in here. I'll make sure to get that to you. And you would just say, hypothetical situation. This is what's happening. I wanted to get your opinion on that. And B.O. will respond in writing to you and provide you with an opinion. In the course of doing business, we often have questions. You know, many of you hold jobs. You may have a business that transacts on Mercer Island. You may be involved in a family member who's got something related to the city, your kids. So sometimes, there's gray areas here. We want to make sure you have a resource. The city attorney can give you an informal opinion on that. The other thing that council directed us to do is to hold training, a comprehensive training for all the board and commission members on the Code of Ethics by April 2021. And I put an asterisk on there, and this asterisk is my asterisk. It is our intent, once the Code of Ethics is revised and adopted, to come back to you and do a much more comprehensive training on the revised code. And the council did direct us to complete that by April 2021. Depending on when the revised code gets adopted, that will guide our actual training dates, and we may have to make a modification. I'm not actually as concerned about the Parks and Recreation Commission because you meet monthly, but some of our boards meet every other month or even quarterly right now. So that's our work items related to the Code of Ethics. And here's this informal opinion spelled out a little more. So I already covered the hypothetical circumstances. And again, BO's, this is, let's see, I don't know if you can see my BO Park's email address is bo.park@mercerisland.gov. So again, we'll get this slide deck to you. Your steps are, if you have something you just want to ask about, you may have a concern about a Code of Ethics issue, you send BO an email. He will converse with you via email, follow up with you if he has questions, and then he will provide you with his informal opinion. And what I want to let you know is that this communication may not fall under attorney-client privilege, which means that your email may be subject to public record. So it may be a public record. I just want you to be aware of that. Okay, I've just mentioned that we are getting ready to work on a revision to the Code of Ethics. And this is a code that applies to all of you. I encourage you to take a look at the code. If you have suggestions, we've already received some drafts or suggested texts from other individuals. You can email Allie Speets, who's our Chief of Administration, and I've got her email address on this slide. And as I already noted, we'll be in front of the council. I anticipate the first meeting in March, beginning to discuss potential code revisions. And then, as I've already stated, and I wanted to say again, we will be back working with all of the board and commission members to complete a comprehensive training on the Code of Ethics once the revised code is adopted. So that is probably the least exciting topic you will have this evening. And as I've already mentioned, I will make sure to get the slide deck out to all of you. And I will also make sure you have, when I send that, I'll make sure that Bio's address is included so you know how to contact him. If you have any questions, I can try to field some tonight, or given your agenda, please also feel free just to reach out to me directly.
I don't see any questions, so thank you very much for that quick summary. It's got me interested. So, okay, thank you. We will then move on to the third item of business on our agenda, which is an update on the Parks, Recreation, and Open Space Plan, the PROS plan. And we welcome City Manager Jesse Bond and Consultant Steve Dew to provide an update.
Again, and thank you, Commission. I think I mentioned when you were at the City Council meeting on the 19th that I was tagging in to help Jason, Ryan, Katie, and Merrill with the PROS plan, given their workloads right now. You know, the city's in quite a transition, and you all are carrying a big load with restart planning on recreation. So that's why I'm here. I think many of you know I served as your Parks and Recreation Director prior to stepping in as your city manager. And most of my career actually was in Parks and Recreation. Steve Dew is joining us this evening. You know, Steve is our consultant, and we have a presentation that we'll walk through. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and share your screen?
There you go.
All righty. So let's go ahead and go to the second slide. All right, Commission. So we met with you and the City Council in January. And when we were at that meeting, we shared that it was our intent to roll out a second survey. And we debriefed as staff with our consultant after that meeting and decided that the survey doesn't feel quite ripe just yet. The change we made is that we're going to go to the virtual town hall. So we'll hold our first public engagement on March 23rd. And then Commission, after that, I think it's the appropriate time to do the second survey. And often the way we do this is we hold the virtual town hall, and then the second survey is really developed to mirror the discussions we had at the town hall, so that those that aren't able to attend in person are still able to participate. So what Steve's going to do tonight, and I have an email, I didn't send it to you just yet. It's a save the date, so we get March 23rd on all of your calendars. I will remind you, Parks and Recreation Commissioners, you're not obligated to attend all of these meetings. I recognize your schedules in particular are quite full right now, but if you can, it's certainly a good idea, and it's real helpful. So what Steve's going to do tonight is he's actually going to walk back through some of the survey slides you saw previously, and don't worry, we're not going to repeat what we did last time, but I want you to start thinking about, you know, the data, the information you have right now as a commission, and where we're headed is, what do we need to know more about, right? For our virtual town hall, what questions do we want to ask? What areas do we need to focus on? I'll give you an example to get you thinking. Your survey certainly called out waterfront activities or the beaches as a key feature of your park system. And, you know, I'm asking myself, well, what does that exactly mean? You know, what do we need more of? Do we need improved accessibility probably, more programming. You know, so that's where we need to go to that next level. And Steve, I'm sorry, I'm probably stealing a little bit of your thunder. Steve's also got a slide queued up just to recap what we heard in January at the joint meeting with the council. And then we'll conclude and be on our way. So Steve, I will stop there and turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, Jesse. And again, good evening, commissioners. And just quick sound check. Can you hear me okay? See a nod or two? Yeah, okay, great. So just picking up where Jesse left off, wanted to circle back with the commission to offer a recap of what this process will look like for us as a project team and for you as commissioners overseeing the pros plan update. So from the session we did with City Council a few weeks ago, I offered a very high level, rudimentary style timeline, but I wanted to give you a little bit more specifics tonight, just so you understand a little better about what all will go into this pros plan update and the different tasks we'll be working on as a consultant team and kind of how they all fit together. So this timeline I've broken into two phases. This first page talks about the specific tasks. The second page that I'll come to in a moment will highlight the public process piece. So as you recall, the pros plan update actually started late 2019 and kind of wound down in April of last year, in part because of COVID. So we have had a chance to start a lot of work early in the process, and most of that, again, focused in the realm of assessing and inventorying the parks and open space and trails, and we did the first survey. So to pick up the project and to take it to the end zone here, over the next 6 months or so, the project lays out like you see on the screen. So the first couple of months, we'll be revising, revisiting, editing, and updating the inventory data that we collected last year. And mostly that's a little bit of truth checking, making sure that what we had collected then is still accurate and appropriate, reassessing and reevaluating how we determined conditions in the field, and reviewing what we had put together for preliminary cost estimating to address some of the deficiencies we noted in our inventory assessment. And just by the way, the inventory assessment is just one piece of the puzzle, in the sense that it really is just the look at how things are today on the ground, and that public feedback, direction from the commission and city council, and other inputs are going to help guide the ultimate project list and sequencing and phasing of projects that appear in the pros plan. So over the course of the next month or two, we will be continuing to refine that information, and our intent is to share that information with the commission in the April session to walk you through what we've seen on the ground, current conditions and assessments, and kind of a quick snapshot of the city's system today.
And Steve, if I can
Parallel
just
with that, we'll also.
Steve, can I interrupt really
Yep.
quick? I'm sorry. I believe it was Commissioner Strzok that emailed and inquired about getting the inventory assessment materials. And I believe I responded and said they would be available in March. After I met with Steve, he said, hey, Jesse, in the future, do you want to check with me on these things? We're not quite ready to go. It'll probably be closer to April. But here's what I'll tell you. We intend to give you lots of lead time when that material comes out. So we'll get it to you ahead of, you'll probably be discussing it at your May meeting. So we'll try to get it to you ahead of time so you have plenty of times to review. So I apologize for the misinformation. All right, Steve, back to you.
So parallel with the assessment of the inventory, we'll also be doing some of the base information that supports the development of the plan. Things like compiling current demographics, looking at recreational trends across the region, across the nation, and seeing how that lays with survey data and other data we'll gather from the community, updating the mapping, doing some watershed-based mapping to see how well the community is served by existing parks, by the trails, by open spaces in terms of physical access. So all of that will be occurring over the next few weeks. And then we'll start getting deeper into the actual system needs assessment. So that really is just a fancy way of saying digesting what we've heard and what we've learned by our groundwork. So we'll be rolling in the trends information from around the region. We'll be tying that with the survey data. We'll be tying that with the inventory assessment information. And at this point, it's how we lay out the pieces of the puzzle on the table. We start to find ways to fit them together. We look for opportunities for addressing some needs or improvements with specific site improvements and starting to bundle things together in terms of, you know, different themes or in different topic areas. So we're starting to build that puzzle. And with that goes reviewing the existing goals and policies that are from the 2014 PROS plan, as well as reassessing and reviewing the comprehensive plan, Aubrey Davis master plan, other master plans, the bike and pedestrian plan, and everything else that the city has worked on over the last many years to align and amend or update as appropriate goals and policies to make the PROS plan set of goals and policies current, fresh, and appropriate. So really it's the beginning of that synthesis phase. And at that same time, we'll also be starting to initiate development of the actual plan. So as you can imagine, pulling a plan document together isn't something you just flip together on a weekend. It takes a period of time to build the layout and put the content in and make sure things work and flow accordingly. So the systems needs assessment will also align with the virtual open house that Jesse mentioned earlier and the second survey. So we'll be using the first survey and the field assessment information married with the new information that we'll be gathering over the next couple of months to really compile a current assessment of where the community is today, what big issues are out there, and starting to provide some thoughts on strategies, recommendations, projects, etc. Then moving later into spring, it's really focusing on the priorities and strategies. It's starting to develop ideas about implementation, putting the capital facility project list together, refining sequencing and costing, and developing the comprehensive and full first draft of the PROS plan update. With that, there's also some regulatory requirements that we have to address, and one of those is making sure that we go through the SEPA process, which is the State Environmental Protection Act process. So for a plan like this, there's a checklist that we have to complete, and that gets put out in the public sphere for folks to comment on. So that's something that we'll be doing once we have a working draft that internally has been blessed and discussed, and ideally discussed with the commission as well. The final big push is the review and approval process. So getting the commission to discuss and forward the plan to City Council, and also coordinating with the Open Space Conservancy Trust and the Arts Commission as well, just to make sure that we're touching all of the relevant boards, commissions, and partners for the update. So those are the major steps, and it sounds like a lot to be going on for, you know, a 6-month window, and it is. But it's not just me working on the project. So I know Jesse mentioned I'm the consultant, but I'm really just a person on the consultant team. I just wanted to let you know that it's just not me out there working on this. But the other piece, as I mentioned, is the public process. So I'm just going to flip back so you can see the system needs assessment right there in the middle from March to May lines up with some of the subsequent work we'll be doing for public outreach. So I've noted on the top line, the Park and Rec Commission meeting dates. Will likely be attending and providing reporting back for each of those and looking for your guidance at those. And the next big piece is preparing for the virtual open house. And Jesse noted the date, which we've targeted as March 23rd. So leading up to that, we have a fair amount of work to do. And I want to use part of tonight's discussion to get your thoughts on, again, what we should be asking the community and ways to refine what we've already heard. But for your reference, kind of the way we're thinking about the virtual open house is it would be a Zoom-based session, and it would be facilitated to include things like a front-end presentation. It would likely have a series of breakout rooms that are topic-oriented, much like you would at an in-person open house where you have small table discussions or small topic areas where people can give feedback. So it would be a bit of a space for a forum. And then, we would also have polling during the meeting, and we likely have an exit poll after the meeting. So people can provide us feedback that we can quantify, that we can add to the information that we've got from the first survey, and we can use to refine questions for the second survey. So again, that second survey would follow the virtual open house. We're currently working through draft questions and working with internal project team and staff to devise what those questions might look like. But again, we're looking for commission insight about those as well, specifically, again, around the thought of what more do we need to learn? Where do we need to dig deeper to understand current community sentiment so we can start to make policy ideas? So another outreach piece is the focus group sessions. And again, those there are two, and one would be focused toward families and teens and one focused toward seniors. Dates aren't firm for those yet, and that's a bit of a work in progress, but generally we're targeting late March through mid-April for that. And then as we work through the Park and Recreation Commission, we'll also likely do another joint session with City Council and the Commission sometime in May or June, once we have the virtual open house, the second survey data, and we've had some time to think about what it all means, to provide some ideas about recommendations or strategies and put that in front of the commission and the council to get some direction and guidance. Throughout the whole time, online engagement, periodically through Let's Talk, Facebook, and other outreach. So I just want to stop there before I transition to survey information, see if there's any questions or comments on the process.
Commissioner Richter has a question, followed by Commissioner Struck and Commissioner Cohen.
Hi, this is Amy Richter. Steve, you talked about the breakout rooms for the virtual open house and that they'll be topic oriented. I'm interested in hearing a little bit more about that. Just some like general ideas of what the topics might be. I'm sure we have to figure that out. Will those be promoted to the community? Because I think that can help get engagement if somebody's passionate about a particular topic area. And would you see those being facilitated when people go into the breakout rooms?
Great questions. And to hit the first question, or the second question first, yes, they will be facilitated, much like an in-person public forum would be where you've got small table discussions. So we'll have staff or consultant team members facilitating each of the breakout rooms that occurs. As for the specific topics, again, we as an internal project team are still thinking through what might make sense. So I can't really answer the specific question about topics yet, but I do want to use tonight's time with the commission to see if you have ideas about types of questions or types of topics that we should dive into. And I'll come back to that at the end.
Steve, I was just going to say that as we get to the next portion of the slides here, please be thinking again about what questions you have, what topics and areas you want us to focus on, and really we want to start drilling down in our engagement strategy. So that's part of the reason we're here tonight.
Commissioner Struck.
Thank you, Peter Struck speaking. The question I have is, I look at the inventory assessment and the supporting data as kind of the two kind of foundational pieces of input that will help kind of drive things. And just kind of looking at the project timetable, I'm not sure we're going to get the full value of that, because it appears, and this is where I guess my question comes, it appears that those really won't be available until after either the virtual open house and or once the survey is put together. And I would, I'd hate to get put in a position as a commissioner to, get that additional information and say, oh gosh, if I'd had this ahead of time, I would have suggested asking this question or that question. Could you respond to that?
Sure. I think it's going to be fine. We're still at a high enough level. And I'll be honest with you, we can't get it to you any faster. And I don't feel comfortable releasing information that's not finished. So we're still working on, we've got the raw data, we're putting it in to a complete package, and we'll get it to you as soon as we can. And you'll have many touches. We'll be in front of the Parks and Rec Commission every single month until the project is done.
Okay, I guess where I prohibit is I release it till it's, but I guess the question would be is, if it's not going to be released till after some of these other activities, does it make sense to push the other things back? I guess is the real question.
Yeah, and I should have probably covered that at the beginning. The finish line is where the finish line is, right? We're looking at a possible July, September adoption of the PROS plan. But as we've talked, this has not been a traditional process. We stopped and put it on pause, and now we're back. And so if we find that we need more time, we'll take it. And what Steve and I did was really put together the outline so you can see the milestones we need to hit. And we'll be checking in with you as we go, and certainly also checking in with the city council. So don't worry too much that we're going to be rushing. I assure you we won't, but we're going to keep moving through it. And really, if you think about the infrastructure piece, that really gets to part 2 of our planning process. That's where we start to take the information we have from survey 1, survey 2, the virtual open house. We look at our data, and then we start to think about the capital plan. Now it's going to take probably a couple meetings, maybe even 3 commission meetings.
Commissioner Cohen.
Thanks, Don Cohen. Well, no disrespect to the city manager or the consultant, but I agree with Peter, that we shouldn't be focused on a specific end date if it means that somebody like Commissioner Struck thinks he can glean some information that would be useful at the virtual open house and for the second survey, but he's not going to have the opportunity to look at that information. So that's not why I raised my hand, but I agree with that. And unless there's a hard date that is very important. I wanted to comment something similar to what Commissioner Richter did, but if I'm early on this, tell me. It seemed to me that 3 things we've heard a lot from in the last month are seniors. I heard Steve mention reaching out to that group, and he has previously, the Snake Hill group, and tonight in particular, accessibility. And I don't know whether it's apples and oranges to try to work those things in. I suspect that that's actually, we're going to talk about that kind of stuff a little bit later. But before I forgot it, those are the things that drop into my mind. And they're obviously people who feel very passionately. Some of them are well organized, and we need to be mindful of that regardless of what the outcome is.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Cohen, if I misspoke a moment ago, I apologize. There's not a hard deadline. The schedule, it's a sequencing of events here, and we will work at the appropriate pace for you, the community, and the city council. And you've got a great segue here. I think we should get to the next slides because I do know you've got a full agenda this evening. As you just rattled off 3 things, I remember 2 of them. But as you think about seniors and we get to these next slides, we're going to open up for discussion. If all of you could start thinking about what do I need to know more of? What questions do I have? As we hear that there's senior services facilities needed, that still doesn't tell us a lot, right? So think about the next virtual engagement and survey to go to the next level. So I'll leave you with that brainstorming exercise. And Steve, back to you.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to offer a couple more points on survey 1 that are kind of a continuation from what we had in the discussion from the joint session with City Council. So just as a recap, the survey was out last February, March, nearly 800 completed surveys. Over 500 were from the statistical mail sample, which was a 20% response rate, and the balance were from the broad online engagement. So overall, you had substantial community engagement or feedback from the survey. So I think it's great baseline data. One of the questions that came up during the joint session made me think that it would be relevant to put this information in front of the commission, again, just as a way to emphasize the range of feedback that we did get on the first survey. So again, there was a mail survey and an online survey. The data sets were kept separately. So we're able to understand a little bit about the different subgroups or the different demographics, whether it's by age or by location, or whether it's a household with kids. So again, with nearly 1,800 responses, the one thing I'd have you focus on is that if you look at the combined responses, the column that I've got in bold there, that's the percentage based on age group. And it aligns quite well with the far right column, which is the Mercer Island population, which discounts the people under 20 just because of they weren't there to take the survey. So I think the takeaway is that in aggregate, the feedback that you got from the community for the first survey aligns really nicely with the demographic breakdown based on age for city respondents. The mail survey did skew slightly older, and it also skewed slightly more to households without kids. The online version skewed slightly to middle-aged respondents with kids. And as far as geographic distribution, it was nearly identical between both data sets. So again, in the different ways you can slice and dice the data, I just want to leave you with the impression that the data sets are reliable and that they are representative of the community and are, again, good baseline data for us to build from. That's not to say that we know everything we need to know. And to Jesse's point, there are follow-up questions we need to start thinking about. So just as a refresher, these next 2 slides were also offered for the joint session we had on the park side of the business. Investments like synthetic turf or lighting of sport fields, indoor fitness and bike trails ranked as having high need. And on the recreation side, things like boating programs, outdoor classes, swimming and water safety, performing arts, ranked as things of high need. But I think to Jesse's point earlier, what more do we need to know or understand to really be able to drill down? So the sorts of questions I want to come back to the commission on in a moment to have a discussion about how we structure and think through questions for the open house and the second survey. In terms of other responses from the first survey, there were a lot of opportunities for folks to write in based on open-ended responses. We had a chance to summarize that data, and I believe from the survey summary that you were provided for last month's session with council, all of this was also in there, but I just want to highlight a few things. One, there was a lot of write-in comment about protecting access to nature, both for people and for wildlife. And that, again, aligns with the notion that you've got a strong open space and natural area system on the island. And that's a special sort of thing, different than active use parks. Also, strong interest or some interest in specific sorts of enhancements like pickleball or sports fields or shelters or restrooms. Continued or interest in certain events, specifically celebration, that has potential implications for staff demand and staff load. And then last, the idea that water-oriented opportunities could be enhanced or embellished, things such as splash pads or maintaining lifeguards at the beaches, doing physical improvements, or even having opportunities for rentals for kayaks, canoes, stand-ups, paddle boards, etc. So just wanted to offer that as additional feedback we got from the survey. This one, I'll just reference it. It was a question about how people want to be informed. And here it's virtually identical between the mail survey and the online survey. The top four are the same. And it's the city's website, event signs, Mercer Island Reporter, and the newsletter as the core ways folks want to be informed going forward. So we'll continue to utilize those channels to push outreach and push promotions for the project going forward. Considering what we heard from the discussion with joint session with council, here are some of my takeaways. I'm just going to offer these, and again, maybe these would be fodder for a quick discussion about what we do next. So one point was to take advantage of the uniqueness of Mercer Island, specifically around the idea of water-oriented programs and facilities. You're an island after all. The idea of no net loss of open space and preserving that natural area, again, aligning with the survey response that were the write-in comments. Invasive species management, ongoing maintenance and fiscal sustainability. There's a comment about recreation programming becoming too commercial. But with that, the idea that the city should continue to explore partnerships and opportunities to utilize volunteers. And generally to accommodate a diverse range of age groups and abilities, and all inclusive as part of that. So it gets to the idea of accessibility, equity, and diversity in your system. So I know time is short and I've taken a bit, but I do want to ask the commission a couple of questions about how we move forward and what we learn from the community for the rest of this project. So thinking,
Steve, I'm going to interrupt you at this point and ask if we could take a quick break. I'd ask the commissioners to look at this slide with these questions, and as you're taking a 10-minute break, be thinking about what your questions or responses would be to these items. And we'd come back at 5 minutes until 7, and then have a robust discussion with Steve, and then talk about other ways that commissioners could potentially provide input around these questions. Would that work?
Sounds good.
Okay, so we'll be back at 6:55. Thanks, and please turn off your microphones. It looks to me like we have just about everybody back. So Steve, why don't you go ahead?
Hey, Steve, I'm gonna just toss out an idea here. Why don't we take a look at these questions, and then if it works for all of you, maybe we'll stop screen sharing so we can actually see everyone's faces for the discussion. And I want you to think about this next public engagement, this first meeting, this virtual open house. We are still in listening and information gathering mode. And I probably should have said it like that at the very beginning. So we're still seeking input from the community. We're not at a place yet where we're putting a draft in front of them of anything. And so, again, I've said this a few times, what additional information do you need right now as a commissioner to start formulating your ideas? Because in the second phase of work we'll do late spring, as we get into the summer, is all around the policy development, the recommendations. So I think that makes sense, right? Okay, are you guys okay if we stop screen sharing so we can all right. Steve, back at you.
All right. So yes, thank you, Jesse. I just wanted to reiterate those questions and ask the commission, given what we've learned from the survey, knowing that there are likely topics or points of interest we need to dive deeper in, do you have any specific questions you want to ask of the community? Any types of information you want to learn more about? And to Jesse's original example, the idea about water access or shoreline access, well, what does that mean? Does it mean accessibility? Does it mean additional places to access the water? So I'll stop talking. I'll let you offer some thoughts.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Thank you, Jody McCarthy. One thing that jumped out for me that I think we should be asking people is, how has your use of the parks changed since the pandemic started and our social distancing rules have come into place? Because yeah, I think that would be a good thing to put out there, to find out, what are people doing differently now, or would they like to see different in the parks going forward?
Commissioner Richter.
Hi, this is Amy Richter. I'm just going to throw out a couple of thoughts. Some are broad, some are more specific. So areas that I'm sort of interested in learning more about is the two slides in your deck around the unmet needs versus not enough. So there was 4 listed in the park system: synthetic turfs, bike trails, lighting, fitness centers, I think was the other one. And then there was 4 listed under the rec ops. So definitely that popped for me, and I would love to learn more about it. I haven't thought through quite yet, like what those questions would look like, but that was something that was a highlight for me. And then just broadly speaking, I would be interested in hearing more about like the topics areas, what we could be doing more for outdoor youth amenities. And I'm talking like age between, I don't know, like 10 and 17. And then just thinking about a big stakeholder group is the organized youth athletics.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Gualtieri.
Hi, this is Lynn Gualtieri. So there was a comment, or Steve, I think in your summary of the city council comments about too much commercialization in the parks. I'm not sure if that came out from the public in the survey. So I just am thinking about that versus people wanting sailboat, paddleboard rentals at Luther Burbank. What about Clark Beach? Clark Beach seems pretty underutilized. I want to know what people's ideas are for Clark Beach. And I know there would be a huge amount of resistance if we had some big boat center down at Clark Beach, of course, because then all the traffic all around the island and the parking. But I think there's a lot of potential there. And so maybe if you put that on people's radar, they'll be like, oh yeah, what could we do with Clark Beach?
This is Commissioner Westberg,
I'm muted.
I'd be interested in sorting through some of the contradictions that are in the data. I mean, on the one hand, you have survey data showing the community values the park system very highly, that they think basically the park system provides them with the services and facilities that they need, and that they derive great value from that. On the other hand, you've got specific groups that are advocating, or large numbers of people that are advocating for more facilities of particular types, more trails, more opportunity, more programming. The facility side is the more vexing problem, because programming you can accomplish using the facilities that you have. But in order to provide the large number of people who responded with a more extensive trail system, that involves potential capital improvements, that involves trail, design for trail placement, trail construction. So there's lots to dig in there in terms of really when you get down to it, where are the priorities, both for facilities and for programming.
May I ask a follow-up question, Rory?
Sure.
On the more extensive trails, when I looked at that data, I thought, okay, is this a surfacing? Is this really more trails? Could be. Is this a surfacing thing? Like, I only use this type of trail. Is it a safety issue? So that's where Steve and I are starting to try to break down some of these comments a little bit more. Do you want to? Does anybody want to say anything else about trails and questions that are bugging you right now? That walking is the #1 activity in the recreational in the city. That's consistent with the nation, so that's a high priority.
Well, I'll just use my follow-up, not question but comment, to say that it could run the gamut from more trails through open space to simply designating walking routes around the island that might highlight particular places, natural features, whatever. It's really hard to say based on the survey input, but there's a lot of opportunity there to do more concentration on defining trails and defining walking opportunities.
Okay. I was muted, Lynn, when you were talking a moment ago, but I thought I should at least talk about pricing and cost recovery in the pros plan. And this will be down the end of the line in your process. We'll spend a dedicated amount of time on infrastructure and improvements and how we pay for everything. And it will we'll pick up all the good work you're doing with Emily Moon right now on cost recovery for recreation. So as you were talking about the commercial piece, what I was hearing, and I want to hear from all of you, is bringing in like a vendor for kayaks. It's recreational, but some people see it as commercialization. And I'll tell you, you guys know this, right? There's some people that say, no, leave my beaches alone. Other people want amenities. So I would advocate that we try to like peel that onion a little more, because you're definitely hearing kind of two things. Is that sparking any ideas for any of you in terms of questions you have or thoughts, or how we might take that topic further? Rory, I think I got you on mute.
Yeah.
Commissioner Struck.
Yes, thank you, Peter Struck. Really just to kind of tag on to some comments that have already been made. First for the city manager, I think you're right. I don't really at this evening have any kind of great solutions of how do you do that balance, but I really think to what Commissioner I think there's probably a need for more sports fields, et cetera, which generally involve increasing impervious surface. You have a lot of other people saying no net increase. Unless we're going to buy more parkland, which is very expensive, you got to balance that out. So I think if we could try to crack that dilemma a little bit, that would be great. Secondly, I think in terms of what Commissioner McCarthy said about, we've got a unique opportunity here, given the pandemic, where we had to shut down so much of our recreation. Now we've what people visit activities, but now that they've been, you know, probably a year plus without them, you know, what they really miss, you know, what they say, well, gosh, that was nice to have, but you know, I didn't really miss it. Or maybe they missed it so much that they went elsewhere to get it, you know. So I think you can really try to, as you say, peel the onion back a little bit and kind of take use this kind of COVID experience and really glean some kind of from a different perspective, which I think would be very, very valuable. And I'll come back if I have more. Thank you.
You know, those are really excellent questions. What did you miss? And we're writing this down. And when you leave the island to go recreate elsewhere, why are you doing that? And what are you doing? I think that's a really fantastic way to think about it.
Commissioner Cohen.
I think, Don Cohen, I think these have probably been mentioned already, but if I were an elected member of the council, sorry, I would want to know, I would want to ask people, how do you do this balancing of protecting access to nature, trees, and open space for people and wildlife with the emphasis on more active things? Tell me, Ms. So-and-so at the open house, how would you do that? Because you're not going to make everybody happy no matter what you do. And it seems to me that maybe you'll learn something, or maybe you'll learn something you don't want to hear, or at least get people engaged, because I don't have an answer. And I hopefully those of you who have spent your lives working in this field would. The only specific thing I thought about on some of this, the use of greater access to the water, street and parks. I don't know whether the space permits it, but there's a lot of those and they're really cool, you know. Lynn probably knows that, so.
Commissioner Richter.
Hi, this is Amy Richter. The bike trails, just I've got that on my mind, especially after hearing all the public comment tonight. So like, that's also one of the things identified as an unmet need. But like what kinds of trails are people talking about? What do they want to do on their trails? How much is the right number? I mean, we have bike trails, like how much more would be the right amount? Is it more like a park that when they say bike trails, are they talking more like the bike park trails in a confined area? Or is it for more cross-country types of bike trails? So I think there's some more questions we could be asking in that space to get a clear idea of what people are wanting.
That's, you know, what type of biking are you doing? You got a great snapshot earlier this evening in public comment. One type of biking. Those are great. We need to understand more about how you're using the bike trails or what you're doing on your bike. That's great.
Commissioner McCarthy.
Thank you, Jody McCarthy. One thing that I just wanted to bring forward is maybe we need to be doing a better job of letting people know how many trails there actually are on Mercer Island, because there are walking trails that connect almost every single neighborhood on Mercer Island. And when you link them all together, you can go far and do a lot of different things. So perhaps that's something that we need to be doing, is educating people more on what exactly we have on Mercer Island, and let them know about all of our hidden little parks and the fact that all of these parks are actually all connected with these paths that go around the island.
Commissioner Struck.
Thank you again, Peter Struck. Yeah, one last comment. In this regards, special events, summer celebration, and there's a whole list of those. I think, you know, this could be an opportunity, kind of given sustainability, fiscal sustainability and so forth, to kind of dive a little bit deeper. You know, I think we've been without summer celebration now for 2 years, first year was really due to fiscal matters. Last year was due to COVID. So the community's been without it for 2 years. And maybe there's a different kind of revenue model or so forth like that. But I think just kind of trying to understand, some of these are some fairly big ticket items, and how important are they really to the community versus, again, kind of that balance of, well, what else could we do with that money if we didn't do this type of thing? Thank you.
That's great.
Commissioner Richter.
Remind you too, your pros plan is your strategic plan. And as we start working on it, we kind of default to the infrastructure, but it can be whatever you want it to be. And so the comments you were just making, Commissioner McCarthy, about what I will describe as marketing and communications and promotions, that is something just to get you thinking that you may want to include in your plan as a strategic priority. So it doesn't just have to be built environment. And Commissioner Struck was just talking about events and starting to get into that conversation about, funding and partnerships. Again, I would strongly encourage that to be something we focus on for the final plan. So you're broadening the list. That's great.
Commissioner Richter.
Amy Richter. I was thinking about what Commissioner Struck was talking about, the big event, the summer celebration, and immediately what comes to mind when I think about that event is community. And it's a really big ticket item. It's a really big event. So it got me thinking, we love community in this island. So what are other ways that our residents would like to see us deliver community? Is it programs? Is it big events? Is it small events? Is it inside our parks? Are they dedicated activity? I feel like, are there amenities we can build that bring community together? I think there's more we can be doing to drive that. It may not just be a big event. And what would that look like? I'd like to hear that.
I'm seeing a little interconnectedness here on the commercial conversation and what you were just saying, Commissioner Richter. Pre-pandemic, we could have a corporation knock on our door and say, I want to rent Luther Burbank Park for a corporate event for $10,000 on a Saturday. Is that the right thing to do? These are some of the questions that we want to keep diving into. It's that commercial, private use, revenue, very interesting. So be thinking about those things too.
I know this is a conversation that we could keep going probably for another hour. I did have an idea that I bounced off Ryan, and that is providing commissioners with the opportunity to, if you have other thoughts or other ideas, put them in an email and send them to Ryan. I know there's so much to digest, at least for me, in terms of that survey. I'm trying to unpack everything that it's trying to tell us, that it's going to take me a while, I think, to get my thoughts together. So if you have other ideas, Ryan, when would be a good time to get these to you?
I would ask that you try to email us by like the end of next week with any additional ideas from the lens of, we're still in a listing campaign phase. What else do we need to learn? Because we're turning our attention now to start building the framework for that virtual engagement. So by next Friday, a week from tomorrow, does that work?
Ryan Daly, Operations Transition Team Manager. I would also add, I'm happy to have those individual conversations with commissioners as well. I think it's been extremely productive. This conversation, I think, has went very well, and I can kind of build off that individually and compile some things Friday of next week.
Okay, well, so if you have other thoughts after the meeting and choose to put them in an email, get them to Ryan by next Friday. And Amy, you have a question.
It's more a comment. I would just like to ask you to think about, with that open house, that you're giving people options who may not feel comfortable speaking out in a Zoom format like this, some way to be able to give their feedback, whether it be through a survey or a chat or a post-event survey, because I want to make sure we capture everybody's voice, not just the people who are, very comfortable speaking vocally out on a Zoom call.
That's a great way to leave you all. So we will do both, Commissioner Richter. We will do the virtual open house, and we'll have that second survey ready to go right after that. And that will be round 2 of community engagement. By the way, that's not your last virtual open house. You'll have other meetings. We haven't set the dates yet. It'll largely depend on how the work evolves. So appreciate that comment. It's right on track. And I want to say thank you for your time tonight. And we'll look forward to seeing you again next month.
Thank you, Jesse, and thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
We look forward to taking this journey with you. Okay, the 4th item of business for tonight is the Recreation Reset Plan. And for that presentation, we welcome back Operations Transition Team Manager Ryan Daly and Consultant Emily Moon.
Thank you, Commissioner Westberg. I would just like to, before I introduce Emily again, I would just like to say the staff has been working with Emily since about October, and we're continuing this conversation moving forward. And with that, our consultant, Emily Moon.
Hello, hardworking Parks and Recreation Commission. Glad to be back with you. I am going to try to move swiftly through content, since I know your brains are hard at work and the meeting does get long. We put in your packet an updated draft pyramid, cost recovery pyramid, that incorporates your input, the discussion that we had at the workshop. We took all of that, synthesized it, looked at where we still had some split votes, where you told us, well, we feel comfortable as a group with this item being either in tier 2 or tier 3 as an example. And then we kind of looked and said, all right, where does it look like it fits after we have slotted in all the others that you had perhaps more definitive opinions about. Having said that, I listed in the memo to all of you a few things we could contemplate, or a few things that we might want to just double check. And so for that, I am going to share my screen and pull up the draft pyramid, and then we can talk about those individual items if you wish. There might be some that require more conversation than others, and that's fine. All right, how are we looking? Great. Okay, so this is the draft pyramid, and as you recall, we talked about probably 2/3 of these categories of programs and services, but not all. Some of them prior to the last workshop, you had good agreement on. We have now placed all the ones that we discussed. The ones that I want to talk about are, there are approximately 6. So the first would be youth camps before and after school programming or camps, and then school break programming. So for that one, we placed it in tier number 3. And my question to all of you is that okay? Are you happy with its placement now that you see it in the context of where the others are? Or would you wish to do something different with that particular category of program or service? And then, as you saw in your memo, the reset team would like you to consider placing this in tier 2. And we spelled out in that staff report our rationale for that placement. But I'd like to hear from all of you.
Commissioner Struck.
Thank you, Peter Struck. I would prefer to retain it in tier 3 for 3 reasons. One is I look at the other activities in tier 3. This seems to be properly slotted, just kind of from a qualitative perspective. Secondly, going down to tier 2, which is kind of a minimum 50% level, many of these activities are already provided by a number of, primarily small nonprofit organizations on the island. And to have the city potentially, I'll underscore that, come in and be able to undercut the pricing, if you will, and, you know, either drive these nonprofits out of business or have them in, you know, not be as successful. I don't think that's really the purpose of government. So, and then the third piece is that the real issue, as it's talked about later. I mean, we have the city has a scholarship program for those that are eligible. So I think you could have it stay in tier 3, and for those that you know, need the financial assistance, that's what the scholarship program is for. Thank you.
Great. Any other comments?
Seeing no other comments, what I would like to do is just ask the commissioners how you want to handle this discussion. There's sort of a proposal on the table that for each of these 5 or 6 activity areas that we consider a change in the placement in the tier. So how do you want to handle this as a vote? One thought I had was, we posed the question, do you want to agree to move it to tier 2 or tier 3? You could express, can you live with that change? You can express a vote with a thumbs up, a visible thumbs up, which just basically says, I'm okay with that, or I can live with that. And obviously, if you have a different opinion, you wouldn't put a thumb up. Is that a way to get through this and see what a majority view of the commission is on each of these questions?
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
I am too.
Ryan has a comment.
This is unrelated, Commissioner Westberg, but highlight for you that we're at 7:20, and so we'll be getting into a deeper discussion as this moves forward, which would likely carry us past 7:30. So I just wanted to highlight that for you.
Yes, I'm aware of it.
Thank you.
Amy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. This is Amy Richter. Emily, did you say within the agenda packet, you guys, for each of the 6, you had the staff recommendation?
Correct.
What page?
Well, it starts on page 1 and it carries through page 3.
Oh, I'm looking at the 108 page agenda packet.
Oh, I'm sorry, of the memo itself. I don't have the packet reference. Ryan, are you able to help with that?
It's in the staff report, Amy, the 4-page staff report.
Chair Westberg, I'm happy with that approach to the discussion tonight, is to just take the pulse at the end of any comments or questions or discussion, and then happy to take your summary of what you think the thumbs up revealed.
Okay, so let's try that with this. Let's try that with this first one, which the proposal is to put youth camps before and after school and school break programming, move it to category 2 to emphasize it has a stronger community benefit than we had given it previously. Commissioner Struck offered his opinion with regard to why he felt it was appropriately categorized in tier 3. So if you, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to see everybody's thumb up. I tell you what, if you agree with moving it to 2, put your raise hand button on. Okay, and you can also hold your thumb up if for the others to see, but I see 4 individuals with their raised hand out of 7. So that would, to me, mean that we are in agreement to move it a majority agrees to move it to category 2.
Okay, thank you for that.
I see 5, just to let you know, 5 hands.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. All right, the next.
Rory, Don Cohen. I'm a little uncomfortable with this sort of secret voting because you don't have a sense of who voted for what. To me, it would be just as simple to do it the way you suggested to begin with, but
Okay,
maybe that doesn't work. I mean, it would be useful for me for the next one to know, at least to see whose thumbs were up or not.
Okay, my problem is I'll have to, because I have to keep the hands up thing on, I'll have to scroll through and see everybody's thumb, but I can do that.
Wait, Dawn, do you know how to show it so you can see the hand? Because you can see who voted by just looking at the hand.
Yeah, the hand shows up on your video.
Oh, okay. All right. No, you're right. I forgot about that. Okay, you mean on where it's participants, that thing there?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Westberg, if I might, I'm not sure that that is viewable to the public. So if I could make a recommendation, once we discuss the item and we know what we're thumbs up or thumbs downing, if I could ask Emily to unshare her screen, then everybody would show up on the screen at that time. We could take the poll there and then reshare.
Okay.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Chair Westberg, would you like me to unshare so we can repeat that one just to practice?
Okay, why don't we do that?
Okay, very good. Here we go. This is thumbs up
Okay,
to
this is
move to
thumbs
tier
up.
2.
Yeah, to move it to 2. So we had.
I see 3, 4. I see 4.
5, I think. Okay.
Okay.
I might add one more item. I'm sorry. We do have individuals who may be calling in. So if Commissioner Westberg, if you wouldn't mind, when we do the thumbs up, if you wouldn't mind highlighting those commissioners whose thumbs are up, that would reflect that for those on the phone who can't view.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, Emily, continue.
Yes, let's perfect this on the second one. All right, the second one is fitness center use. And we had a lot of good discussion about that during the workshop. The commission's placement is tier 4, and the reset team would like you to consider placing this in tier 5. And the argument for that is also spelled out in the memo. And you'll recall tier 5 is predominantly about individual benefit, being able to generate perhaps revenue over direct cost. There's private marketplace potentially providing similar services, and that those services may be outside the core mission. So Chair Westberg, I think we're looking, oh yeah.
Could you put the pyramid back up? Was that up on the screen?
Certainly. Yep. Thank you for the reminder to do the shuffle. So I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone has, and if there aren't any, or if there are no commissioners who want to make an argument one way or another, then we can ask for the thumb poll.
Commissioner Cohen has a question.
Sorry, I was just voting.
We haven't asked for that yet.
Sorry about that.
Okay, seeing no questions, I assume, Don, your hand is a vote. I'm going to ask all those in favor of reclassifying fitness centers under category 5 or tier 5 to please raise your thumb. Okay. here's where we'll need to go off the shared screen because I can't see.
Oh goodness, yes. I'm
Um,
poor at juggling this.
I know, well, it's crazy.
I can't find my cursor. Okay, here you go. There we go.
You're muted, Rory.
I can't keep
One,
track of my
2, 3,
button.
4. I think 4, and then with yours, Chair, it's 5. Okay,
Great.
thank you all. All right, the next one, and I'll bring the pyramid up. The next one is P-patch uses, similar conversation here. And that's the commission had previously, through its work at the workshop, said there was a desire to place this in tier 4. And the reset team would like you to consider tier 5. The rationale for that is very similar to fitness center boat launch use as well. So if there are any questions or commentary on that one, I'm happy to entertain any of that. And if not,
This is
I'll
Commissioner Strzok.
take the screen down.
So I just have a comment. So if you read the P-patch information, it was noted that currently if you lease a P-patch, it's $65 a year or season, and according to the memo, that represents about 20% of the city's direct costs. Now, if you look at either tier 4 or 5, the threshold there is 120 or 150%, where if you do the simple math, it comes out, $400 to $500. However, I think, and I talked to Ryan about this to kind of understand it, that these minimums for each tier are for the whole tier and not for individual activities. But I guess the thing I would just throw out there, and I'm sure it's not going to be answered tonight, but should there be if an individual activity is in a particular tier, should there be at least for that individual activity, in addition to the overall, some kind of minimum level? So for example, if you're going to keep the P-patch at $65, which is a 20% cost recovery, shouldn't that really be in tier 1 or 2? Because that's really what it is from a cost perspective. It's not from a benefit perspective. So I just throw that out there, that there's a little bit of a disconnect, I guess, between kind of individual ones and then the overall. Thank you.
Sure. Chair
Commissioner
Westberg, if I
Cohen.
might.
Oh, I'm sorry, Emily, I cut you off. Go ahead.
If I might, Commissioner Strzok is correct. The goal is oriented to the aggregate of the tier. So the target for tier 4 at 120%, we would hope to achieve through the fees and the revenue generation, not just say the height of the fee, but the total revenue generation from all the programs within that tier. So some will recover at or above that level, some will recover below that level. Setting of the fee is a different set of decisions. We need to look at what's appropriate in the marketplace. We have to look at affordability. We have to look at competition in some cases if we need to compete. We need to also look at our cost recovery goals, but there are a bunch of different factors we will look at, and we'll talk about that shortly in your next workshop in depth about how we go about setting fees. So there would be no intent to set the P-patch fee at $500 a year. I don't think that any of our logic would support that.
Commissioner Cohen. I have a comment in response to Peter's observation, and that is that the current cost of $65 and the the cost to the direct cost to the city of providing that service, neither of those are fixed. In my judgment, the cost could be increased, but not astronomically, as the simple math would suggest. And the city could look at ways to cut their direct costs in order to make that a more affordable service to those seniors. So, to the people that actually have access to the plots. So,
Absolutely.
and then the fee could be subsidized by non-general fund revenues as well, by profits made from other activities. So,
Chair Westberg, one other point that I failed to mention is we want to continue to have you focus on thinking about who is benefiting, not how much someone is paying, because we're not dealing with that issue yet. So who is benefiting?
okay, if you could change the screen.
Yes.
Then we'll see who's in favor of moving that, moving P patches to from category 4, from tier 4 to tier 5. So raise your thumb. Okay. We want to keep it where it is.
2. So tier, yep, stays in tier 4. Great, thank you all. Okay, the next one that I want to talk about is senior transportation. And we'll get the pyramid back up here. Senior transportation, I should say the next few, we just wanted to have, make sure that there was a good understanding of what the service was, double check the placement, make sure you feel comfortable. We've provided a little bit extra information for these items. The reset team doesn't necessarily have a recommendation to move the next few services, but we do want you to make sure that you've been able to process all of the information. So for senior transportation, this particular service, we just wanted to make sure you had the same definition that we were working off of. So again, this is a program that is used to transport seniors to the Mercer Island Community Event Center for city programs and services. So that might include senior social, senior lunches, or exercise programs in the past. So I wanted to make sure that definition was out there. Happy to answer any questions about this service. You were split on tier 3 placement, and the reset team placed this in tier 3.
So we were split between 2 and 3?
You were, yes, and this was an item that we didn't have conversation around. It was one that we said we would go back and look and see how everything's sorted out. And then when we did, our team's conversation was that this was add-on service, providing individual and community benefit in that it's helping everybody access programs.
Does anyone have a question or comment on this one? Commissioner Cohen.
I guess I'd put it in 3 rather than, wait, which one? I get these mixed up. I'd put it in, I'm sorry, I would put it in 3 rather than 2 because I don't know how seniors are defined, but they don't have the same bus options that they once had. They have less mobility from the point of view of private automobiles. So I feel more comfortable with 3 than 2.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll do the thumbs up.
Chair, I'm not making a recommendation that we move this per se, but I wanted to hear from the commission if you have any concerns tonight about where it has been placed.
Oh, about concerns about having it in tier 3. Okay. Any concerns on the part of any commissioners that you'd like to share? Okay, Going once, going twice, it stays in 3.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right, the next one, just for some conversation, and this happens to be one where the reset team would like to make a recommendation. The Parks and Recreation Commission members, again, were split on community-wide special events or open special programs. Those are the programs that don't require any pre-registration and are open to all. And you were split between tier 1 and tier 2 after our conversation. Slightly more of your members advocating for tier 2, and the reset team placed this in tier 2. We believe that is the appropriate tier, primarily because we think that this is different than the largely core services or required services or the nature of the services that are listed in tier 1. So we feel like tier 2 is more appropriate. So for this one, happy to answer any questions or have some discussion. And then yes, we would like some feedback as to whether or not you'd like to move it, or if you are comfortable with it remaining in tier 2 as we have placed it.
Well, I don't see any questions, so I assume that's a sign of relative comfort. So
Very good. Okay, thank you. All right, and then the last one that we wanted to discuss was the scholarship program. And we also had a good conversation about this during the workshop. We provided you with a little bit more background and data about this program. And we had a little bit, I think, of a disagreement about which tier this should go in. When we had the commission's workshop, there was discussion about tier 1 or tier 2. And the reset team and at least half of the commissioners during the workshop believe this should be in tier 1. And that is where we have placed it. And the rationale for that is in part because if you place it in tier 2, there's some sort of expectation that non-tax resources are being used to provide that program. And so then you have to ask, where are we getting that other funding? Does it come from the individual, as is the case with most of the other upper tiers? You would be getting that through user fees, for example. But in this case, it defeats the purpose of having a scholarship program. You could, of course, take donations or raise funds in some way to support the program. And I know the city does take donations for this program, but it does put added pressure on it, and it sends a signal that this isn't a tax-supported program. So we recommend tier 1, and that's where we've placed it, but I wanted to ask the question, are you comfortable with it living in tier 1?
Commissioner Struck.
Yeah, I'll speak in support of the motion for 2 reasons. One, kind of pragmatic, at least based on the information provided by in the staff memo. I mean, you were talking, round up $5,000. So it's not a, at this point, a big number that really changes things. But more importantly, I think that having a subsidy or scholarship program, really, for those eligible individuals, kind of creates greater flexibility kind of at the top level in terms of how one goes about pricing this and so forth. So I'm supportive of it.
This is Commissioner Westberg. I would also add that I was supportive. I am supportive of it. It was my original vote. It didn't seem to me to make much sense to have a scholarship program that could potentially involve some kind of cost share on the part of the participants. I don't see any other comments or hands up, so I guess we're okay with it being in category 1.
Great, great, fantastic. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to do, and I'm gonna share my screen again and show you a graphic that was in your packet for the workshop. Not intending necessarily to talk through everything that is on this next slide, but putting it up to refresh your memory. We began our conversation about cost recovery at the workshop, and we defined that term for you. And then we talked to you about how we went about picking the targets for each of the tiers in the pyramid. And we did that largely by looking at past data for expenditures and revenue generation from the programs and doing little spot tests to see if those programs and services might have the ability to recover at those levels. And then we looked at what other communities are doing. We wanted to make sure that we weren't out in left field and that our recommendations seemed to be plausible. And so I wanted to circle back with you after the pyramid had been fully constructed, and to let you know that staff at this point is not making a recommendation to change those targets now. What we are recommending is that we continue to monitor whether or not the programs and services, as we have placed them in the tier, are in the right places on the tier, and that those cost recovery targets are still possible and good. And by good, I mean they stretch us a little, but they're achievable still. And so in your memo to that end, I wanted to point out there is one particular tier where we know there will be challenges because you have a potential high cost driver depending on how the city delivers that program or service, and that's the one of community and special events, in a cost recovery tier where that group is meant to recover 50% of its costs. So our goal is to put our best estimate out there, our best plan, design the fees according to the rules that I discussed earlier, some competition and market factors, ability to pay, all of that. And then we take a year of actually providing those services and analyzing their performance. And then we go back and we test the pyramid and see if it's still working or if we need to make other targets and goals. So I wanted to ask if there were any questions on that topic.
Yeah, Commissioner Struck first, and then Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. Sorry. So Emily, would you envision, or is the city envisioning in this process where you've got targets for each of the tiers? And I might have a little disagreement with that, but I get it. But would you then roll it up one further level to say, here is the overall kind of cost recovery that the city should expect from all of these programs? Let's 78% or whatever the number is. So there's kind of like one metric that, because for the community members to try to remember all this stuff, it's impossible. But if they have one number, let's say this is the goal, and like you say, after a year, we can say we met it, we exceeded it, it fell short. Here's why, move forward. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for the question. We certainly can do that. Another way that some cities approach giving kind of the macro target is to think about it in terms of what the facility should recover to support its costs versus programming that could happen in multiple locations. So there are different ways to look at it. And yes, we can find a way to communicate what our overall goal is so that it's a little bit simpler, easier for people to follow. And that may change too, because each year you may offer a different suite of programs and services with different costs, and their revenue performance may be different.
Go ahead, Don.
Oh, Don Cohen. So I assume that during the year of gathering that data, that the cost, like Peter said earlier, the cost of individual components of a particular tier, that information would be gathered so that we would, the staff and you and we would have a sense of, is it going the wrong way or compared to what we thought it was going to be, even if the aggregate's right on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. One of the recommendations that we will have in the final plan is that we should do some level of program evaluation, and the cost and the revenue or the cost recovery is only a portion of that program evaluation. But once we get those figures on cost recovery at the individual program level, then we can pose those questions of what was it supposed to achieve at the aggregate within this tier? Did we understand that this program was going to be lightly subsidized by others within the tier, or by entirely other tiers, or did it outperform, and do we need to think about its placement in the pyramid in a different way? Again, you know, the big focus is to make sure that we have everything organized according to who benefits. But it may be that we decide that the cost recovery target for a tier is either too high or too low after we look at that performance data.
I don't see any other questions or comments. Anything else, Emily, from your end? Or?
Yep, one quick last slide. Just a reminder on next steps. We will be having a workshop on February 25th, and it should be fun. We get to talk about the survey results, and then we're going to have a really good conversation about programs and services. What do we think we should deliver in the near future after we get through the pandemic? So we're going to apply what we've learned from the Let's Talk survey results. We're going to apply our conversations about the pyramid and what is core and essential in order for meeting community needs, but also delivering programs and services in a financially sustainable way. And then we're going to talk about the fee study data that we're in the process of collecting now, and relate that to how we think we should allocate the resources that are generated, the financial ones that are generated by those fees, and put them back into offering the programs and services that you all and the community members have prioritized. And then we'll talk about what we need to do to go and ask for those resources, the conversation that we'll need to have with City Council in April. And if we have time between now and then and during the workshop, we'll start to outline the policies and procedures that we believe we're going to need to tweak or even develop in order to implement the cost recovery and resource allocation philosophy.
Okay, sounds like it'll be a full plate at that next work session.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Struck.
Yeah, sorry, just Peter Struck again. Just a real quick question to city staff. On the survey, do we know how many respondents we've had to date? I know we've got about 10 days left. Are we happy with the response so far, or do we need to get the word out more, et cetera, et cetera? Thank you.
We will, Ryan Daly, Operations Transition Team Manager, we will continue to be pushing the survey, especially going into next week. We've had an outstanding turnout. I mean, I'm extremely impressed with the numbers. It's over 500 right now. I can give you that, and climbing. So I thank you to the commission. I think quite a bit of that has been the conversations you've had in public as well as through this process. So thank you. That's helped tremendously with staff work. The other thing I would like to just kind of piggyback off of Emily here. On February 16th, we'll be providing an update to the City Council on where we are in this process with the Parks Commission. So just to give you a heads up on that'll be something we'll be doing ahead of the workshop. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emily.
Very good. Thank you all.
And thank you, commissioners, for hanging in there. We're in the home stretch. I hope. So the fifth item of business is one that you may be surprised to see on the agenda, the Aubrey Davis Park Trail Safety Improvement Project Framework Recommendation, because we thought we had finished this. But as it turned out, in our bylaws, our bylaws specify that any decisions made by the commission have to be communicated via memo to the city council and approved by vote of the commission. So we are coming back to you to accomplish exactly that. And I'll let Paul West jump in at this point and do a quick briefing on where we are, and hopefully we can move on this item quickly.
Thank you. Paul West, CIP Project Manager. Commissioner Chairman Westberg and met with the City Manager Bond, and they worked out the content of this memo together, and it was reviewed by the officers, meaning also including Commissioner McCarthy. And basically the scope of work that the commission approved in December is embedded in that memo. And we removed some of the procedural stuff that was at the end of that scope of work that was really not of relevance to the council, is more administrative. So that's the essence of the memo. There's nothing really substantial that changed from December. The other thing I want to bring to your attention is that the memo references an application that we made that started this whole process back in 2018. I'll share my screen here. You'll see this as your second exhibit. And this memo is simply what we use to apply to the state legislature for a capital project appropriation. When we applied in 2018, it was the very beginning of the Aubrey Davis Park master plan process. We had just finished some initial scoping meetings, and we, at that point, were getting a read from the consultant that the trails should fit the newly adopted standard, which would be 14-foot wide for a multi-use trail. I should say the to be adopted national standard. So that's what we put into this application, thinking that that was going to be expensive and we would need the help of the state legislature to fund something like that. We didn't hear anything about this appropriation until the middle of the summer, the following year in 2019, when we were in the middle of the Aubrey Davis Park planning process, and we're hearing very clearly from the community that widening the trail throughout the park was just not going to fly. And we set this aside and waited until the Aubrey Davis master plan was completed at the end of 2019, and then turned our attention to figuring out what we needed to do to amend this scope of work. The Department of Commerce has told us that they just need an amended scope of work. They provided us the form to fill out. It's really a pretty simple form. Does not go into as much detail as the scope of work that the commission has sent to the city council. In fact, that's the reason that we have changed what we're calling the products going to city council as the project framework, because it's much more elaborative than the scope of work that is in this application and will be in the form that we submit to the Department of Commerce for the scope of work revision. So take home is that if you hear something, somebody saying that we're trying to widen the trail, that was something that we initiated 2+ years ago with the state legislature when we didn't know what the master plan was going to say. Now that we know what the master plan says and we've developed the scope of work with the commission, we are submitting a scope of work revision that reflects the product of the Parks and Rec Commission with the approval of council. And this will go to council on March 2nd and be discussed. Your memo will be discussed there. And that is all. Let me stop sharing the screen here. Are there any questions or for Paul or any concerns? I hope you recognize that within the content of the revised memo is the material that we had discussed and prepared. So we do need to adopt this with a vote and a formal on a formal motion. So I would like to entertain a motion to approve the recommended framework memo and authorize the chair to transmit it to the city council.
I have my hand up, but I'll move. I'll move that. I'll make that. Don Cohen make that motion.
Thank you, Don. Is there a second?
Jody McCarthy, I will second.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, let's this.
I can use a roll call.
Meryl has to do a roll call to record the vote. Sorry about that. Almost jumped the gun.
Chair Westford.
Aye.
Vice Chair McCarthy.
Aye.
Commissioner Richter.
Aye.
Commissioner Cohen.
Aye.
Commissioner Gualtieri.
Aye.
Commissioner Birkenwald. I believe is left. Commissioner Struck.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all. And I feel good we've reached a decision to move that on. So in the interest of time, I'm going to ask Ryan if he would submit his departmental report and update via email.
Absolutely. Happy to do so. I also want to make a note about Birkenwald had let me know that she needed to leave right at 7:30. I think she stuck out maybe till about 7:45. She had to flip some childcare things around. So she did let us know that that was going to be something that was going to be happening. The other thing I would like to note, and I believe we heard it earlier this meeting, the February 6th meeting at the BMX track at 10 a.m. That was an item I do have in my commission report, but you won't receive that likely until after that meeting's occurred. So I did want to highlight that for anybody who may be listening. Again, that's February 6th, Saturday, 10 a.m. at the BMX track, and it'll be a conversation with Kim Frappier about how that park is being used and how it's being operationally managed right now. So thank you.
Okay, the last item on the agenda is the commissioner reports. I would, at this point, I would say if you have something that you would like to share with the group, please put your raise hand button on. And if not, I'm seeing none. I'll finish with a reminder that our next meeting will be a special meeting on February 25th to discuss the recreation reset plan. And our next regular meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission is March 4th, again at 5:30. So the time is now 8:03 and this meeting is adjourned. However, as a reminder to commissioners, please stay seated until the city staff has terminated the Zoom broadcast. Thanks for hanging in there. Stay safe and stay healthy.
I'm going to stop our